Okay, guys, thanks for joining me. So I've got Paul Archer, who is the Regional Sales Director for UK and Ireland at Nuvolo, with me today, and Peter Goltz, the Director of Solution Consulting for EMEA.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, great. Thanks for coming down this way
pleasure.
and joining us as well. So Nuvolo is the #1 app on the Servicenow App Store, which is a really impressive feat, I think, by terms of revenue, and I'm not sure any other metrics, but obviously a really well-publicised story. Everyone knows about it. As we said, a lot of ServiceNow people often recommend, if you've got a facilities kind of thing, go to Nuvolo. Do you guys one of you want to take us through a bit of background on Nuvolo's story, kind of, formation, how you came to be and what you do, basically?
Sure, yeah, I'll cover that to start with. So Nuvolo is East Coast American company based out of Paramus, which is just outside of New Jersey. The company was formed in 2014. Originally, we were very much a ServiceNow professional services organisation, but heavily focused in the clinical space. A lot of private hospitals and clinical asset management and that sort of thing. And we found that we could create a product with the ServiceNow platform, on the Now platform, that was very heavily targeted at that business. Really from that, we realised that we could also take the product into other facilities spaces, into general enterprises, and really that's what we did. So since 2014, we've been taking the company really on that journey from originally a professional services company into a software organisation.
It's really interesting. So I didn't realise you guys started as a PS org and then found basically a verticalised solution, built the app, and now that's, I assume, obviously the complete majority of what you do now is this facilities-based kind of space.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
At a high level, for people who don't know, me being one of them, what kind of sits in this space of the app in terms of what does that facilities management kind of world look like? What kind of components are made up of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we released in this space called Integrated Workplace Management Systems. There's a lot of different terms out there for it. But what it stands for and what it really comprises of is 5 key modules. So that includes maintenance management, so the ability to manage both equipment, manage contracts for third-party vendors, manage all of the facilities work orders and requests. Space and move, which includes the ability to manage where people are located, start tracking space occupancy, space utilization, to also start charging back those costs back to the organization. Then you have real estate and lease, so the ability to start tracking the leases, the cost of those leases, and also any type of key dates associated to that. And then you have sustainability as well. So sustainability includes the ability to track energy cost and energy consumption, and then also CPPM, so managing projects, managing any types of key programs to make sure you're on track for financials and also the budget as well.
Okay, interesting. And is the driver behind these applications, is it a governance thing and a cost saving thing? Is it kind of those both angles that the kind of solution brings to the table?
Yeah, I think first off, it's efficiencies. So identifying ways to, one, make your resources more efficient.
Okay.
So especially with your facilities technicians, understanding where they are, what they're working on, what their workload is for the week. And then also identifying efficiencies to extend the life of equipment. So when you look at repair versus replace decisions, how much has this device cost us to maintain over its life? And then also what would it cost to then replace it? So that way they can start making analytical decisions to, one, save money, but also be more effective with what they have.
Got it. Have you got any kind of headline, examples of big ROIs or any, what kind of use case studies kind of do you guys talk about when you're doing your kind of sales talks and stuff? Have you got any big clients that have made X much money back or X much efficiencies or anything off the top of your head? If you haven't, that's cool.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to cover that off. So one example where I mentioned managing third parties. So one example is a retail organization. They're working with a lot of different third parties. And when those third parties were submitting invoices, right, it was somewhat blind, right? No one had much oversight, not much accountability on things like labor, parts, materials. And once they implemented Nuvolo, what they noticed is a 15% savings on every single invoice that was coming in. Wow. And that's just simple accountability, right? Actually having visibility into what they were doing, when they were doing it, and who was doing it. And with 15% savings, that can obviously add up.
That's huge. Yeah. That's a good case study. It's a good number. Cool. So when did it change from being a PS org? Like how quick did they go from starting life as a PS org in 2014 to then the idea and then that app actually?
I think it was about a couple of years, wasn't it, Peter? Originally, I think they saw that they'd just been focused on professional services. In the space was not going to be enough for them, and with the Now platform, they realised that they could create a solution that they could continue to sell as a standalone solution, really, but with the professional services alongside it. So it probably the first couple of years, from originally that seed funding in 2014, then around about 2017, I think we brought the product out and have continued to develop it from there.
Yeah, it's been exciting for years since then as well, isn't it? You've had a number of kind of funding rounds, and
so we've had two
European expansion and
two further Series A and Series B, both raised about $12 million, I believe. Servicenow have been an investor in us right from the start, from that initial seed funding, in Series A and Series B as well. So they're kind of backing us to that degree. Yeah. We've largely focused on North America as a business. Having said that, we have some people out in Pune and in Sofia as well, so we can kind of follow the sun from a support perspective. But we also have product management and development resources in those areas as well. And we've only fairly recently sort of moved into Europe. The EMEA MD was hired in this time last year, Sean O'Donnell. So I joined in the middle of last year. And now we're up to about 5 or 6 of us in Europe in sales and pre-sales. But we've probably got about 20, 30 people in the Sofia office, covering, as I say, support and product management as well. So hopefully you'll see a lot more of us in the coming months. Yeah.
And you've obviously mentioned the Servicenow investing. That's been great. We know that they use you guys as a kind of poster child for built on now, as they're now calling it. This whole kind of building apps out on the ecosystem, either verticalised or horizontal kind of apps. How do you see that relationship kind of continue over the next few years? Do you think that, are they going to be using you guys to work on more of their own stuff in terms of more solutions? Do you think you guys will bring more solutions onto the table on the platform, or different modules within the application? Or
so
is that something you work with them on, in terms of road mapping or anything? Or
so I can definitely comment on that. So one of the exciting things is our relationship with ServiceNow is very strong. So we're built on the platform. They're one of our customers using our application. And also, we work very well with the ServiceNow sales organization as well. So with their customers that are already using ITSM, already using HR, already using GRC, what we allow them to do is also utilize facilities within their customer base. So what that means is that they can expand the presence, the value that the platform is giving to their customers. And then also in terms of roadmap, we're coming out with functionality, things like wayfinding. So the ability for employees of an organization to easily find where they need to go to, perhaps for a meeting, perhaps to find a conference room. And then also additional functionality that includes things like ability to pull in 3D floor plans. So when you look at managing equipment within a building, it can be quite complex. Not only knowing where it is, but what floor it is, where it's located specifically within that floor. And then also start managing things like space occupancy, space utilization with those 3D drawings. So a lot of stuff coming in our roadmap. We come out with 4 major releases per year, which allows us to develop very, very quick.
Okay. So four major releases a year. Are they kind of, I guess, quarterly releases and pushed out? Do they get pushed out to the existing customers as part of a ServiceNow upgrade, or do they upgrade via the store? Do you know how that works technically?
So they upgrade via the store, and those upgrades are available to all of our customers. So being a customer of Nuvolo, you get those free of charge. Just simply upgrade, and you have the enhancements and additional functionality.
And do you publish out a roadmap as well then? Do you kind of, do customers get to see kind of what's coming next release, or a couple of releases ahead or anything like that? Or?
Yeah, we certainly like to keep them in the loop. So when we do come out with new releases, we give them all of our release notes, so they understand what's in it, how to configure it, and how to utilize it to its maximal potential. And then also, as customers are starting to consider additional projects, Paul and I and the rest of the Nuvolo organization, we're working with our clients to tell them, kind of give them insight into what's up and coming.
Yeah, it's good as well, isn't it? Sometimes clients are asking you for things, and if you can build that into your roadmap, but if you get enough of them asking, but also you can tell them, hold back, that's coming, don't go. We used to see a lot of our clients constantly wanted to build custom applications potentially, For us getting visibility of either Servicenow roadmap or partner roadmaps.
Yep.
It's nice for us because we go back and we say, look, guys, you can build this now with us if you want. You're going to spend money with us, but you're going to have essentially a quote unsupported. You're going to have an application we built. Right. You're either going to have to pay us for ongoing support and maintenance. Or you can wait 3 months, 6 months. This is coming out. It's native. It's going to be supported fully. It's going to be always being upgraded. You're going to get new features. You're going to get the right level of support. Which do you want to do? Can you wait or not? And that's a conversation we'd love to have with our customers because that's where we try and add the value into them rather than them off building. Otherwise they're building things and 3 months later it comes out natively.
Exactly. No, it's much better.
And then it doesn't work as well, and you come to upgrade, it doesn't upgrade properly. I mean, the platform's a lot better these days where we can scope apps and do stuff, but especially in the older days, a few years back, where before that existed, you're building them and an upgrade come along and it was always painful and bits would break and stop working. So.
And I think that's one of the values of the ServiceNow platform, right? It's so configurable, it's so flexible, and it's secure, right? So I think that's also one of the reasons why ServiceNow has been successful by itself, because it's completely innovating the way that organizations are using technology.
And I mean, 2018 Forbes most innovative company in the world, isn't it? I talk about it in almost every conversation I have, but hell of an achievement. I used to wonder when the steam was going to run out of ServiceNow. So obviously we're building the company as well, is on the back of it essentially. And I used to think, because I saw it happen to Remedy, BMC Remedy, everyone had it. ServiceNow came along and unseated it in quite a big way. And I was thinking, well, when's this going to run out? And then they just kept adding more. And
it's phenomenal.
And now they've got things like the natural language processing and facial recognition, and it's just voice recognition. It's in a totally different league.
Absolutely,
and it deserved that recognition it got. But it was interesting to see a kind of enterprise app, on there above Apple, above Tesla, above these kind of companies. And
it's crazy.
Fred Luddy on the cover was.
I think what's fantastic about being built on the platform as well, Nuvolo inherits all of those platform functionalities. So they can start using those platform functionalities for the facilities organization, which allows them to start doing things like knowledge sharing, right? Using one portal for all end user requests, so simplifying that end user experience.
That is absolutely the power of that platform, isn't it? Everything they put in there in the central engine, the workflow engine, notifications, portals, all these bits, natural language, you can pull those features out and use them in your app and keep innovating yourself.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I think the big benefit as well to any customer, purchasing something like Nuvolo as well is the fact that they've already done their due diligence on the platform. So we simply reside on that. We build on that. So all that work's already been done, which cuts down a massive amount of that sort of IT due diligence that needs to be done, and that can really shorten any sales cycle.
That setup, configuration, security requirements, all those bits and pieces just done. And that's the whole point these days of the platform we were pushing it, isn't it? Is you've got this platform, you've built out some core functions. Now look at these apps you can add, and you can just essentially, subject to your purchasing requirements, you can press a button and install it and start a project and get it in. I think we're going to see a lot more of it over the next few years for sure.
Definitely.
So I've got some acronyms written down here. So EAM, CMMS, IWMS. I know you talked about them. Do you want to break these down and what? I'm assuming these are super common terms in the facilities management space, but what are they?
Yeah, so EAM stands for Enterprise Asset Management.
Okay.
So that really includes the ability to manage, your existing inventory, to start planning any type of replacement, so the full life cycle of the equipment, and then also starting to do schedule maintenance against that.
Okay.
So extending the life of your equipment. CMMS stands for Computerized Maintenance Management Systems or software. That one's a mouthful like IWMS, but very similar, right? A lot of these terms are very interchangeable. You have CAFM, you have just standard facilities management, you have connected workplace management. So all of these acronyms allow organizations to better manage their equipment, better manage those requests, start having visibility into how their office space is being utilized. Can you think of any other ones?
No, not at all.
So talking about that equipment and these assets all the time, I come from obviously an IT-oriented world. So for me, when you're talking about assets, I'm thinking about desktops, laptops, monitors. Right. Do they become part of this as well? Is that part of the assets?
Certainly can be.
And then
absolutely.
You're tracking the locations and the bits and pieces in a more granular level. Yeah. But then, or is the main focus for non-kind of normal IT assets, if that makes sense? So I can imagine the example like in a hospital, like we've talked about, where you've got MRI machines and blood pressure units, whatever those type of things are. What other type of what type of stuff are you managing if you pick a retail customer, for example?
Sure. Well, I mean, look, certain retailers got fridges that they need to manage, or the HVAC systems. Yeah. In the health space, you've got things like, drivers, blood drivers. Okay. So those types of things are the things that we can track and manage. Maintenance schedules on those things. Obviously, you can appreciate that you need to figure out, do we actually need to replace something on that device, or can we actually repair it? Or is the thing always breaking down? Yeah. So we actually do now finally need to change that thing out.
Yeah, and then also, right, when you think about managing IT equipment, we recommend to manage that within your current CMDB using Servicenow ITSM. But what Nuvolo allows you to do is start doing those non-IT assets. Okay. And like Paul said, right, that can include many different medical equipment for a standard facilities organization. That can include all the way down to manage a chair, any type of desk furniture, but also things
projectors, like TVs, I guess. And
exactly. Also things like HVAC systems, air conditioning units. Yeah. You also have the ability to start managing your fleet equipment, which I think you mentioned as well.
Yeah. Okay. And what's that look like? Like fleet equipment as in like vehicles and things like that?
Vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah, managing scheduled preventative maintenance against those, knowing what you have, who's using them, tracking things like mileage. Yeah. So as you hit a threshold of, let's say, 3,000 miles or 4,000 kilometers, you can start to initiate things like oil changes based off of that.
Nice. And we talked a little bit about corrective and preventative maintenance, corrective and preventative. Talk a little bit about that, because I know that's driving a lot of kind of people to, data-driven decisions around whether it's cost-effective to fix or how much is going into that unit. But what does that look like, that kind of landscape?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges historically is organizations, they're either using legacy tools to manage their equipment, or perhaps they're using Excel. Yeah. So the challenge with that is, one, they don't have an accurate inventory of what they currently have. Okay. They don't know what they have, where it is, who's using it. So with an application like Nuvolo, what they can do is start pulling that information in, making it easy for the technicians to capture that with things like a mobile application, capturing make, model, manufacturer, warranty expirations. So that way, when the equipment breaks down, maximizing any type of warranties they have, and then also using reporting and analytics for that as well. Okay. So a standard report is, how many warranties do we have expiring this week, this month, this quarter? Yeah. So then you can actually go out and be proactive, inspecting the equipment before it breaks down and before that warranty expires.
Makes perfect sense. And I guess obviously then they're using the reporting and analytics engine in ServiceNow. So they're obviously getting a really nice experience, high quality reports, easy on the eye and those kind of things. Yeah. Do people ever use like performance analytics across Nuvolo? Do you know the PA application? Are they kind of trending anything at all? Or it'd be interesting to see if there's any use cases of that going on.
Yeah, so we do have customers using performance analytics to start trending things like the work that's going on within the organization, managing equipment, how their space is being utilized. Really, it comes down to the organization and what they're hoping to manage. So most of our customers are using standard ServiceNow reporting, which I think it's above and beyond what they're currently using, or what they're previously using. And that's because within ServiceNow, the reports are so easy to build, right? It's using drop downs to build out a report. And I'll typically show that in a demonstration, how you can, with one click, build out a report. And when you think about other applications they're used to seeing, it's hard coding, it's having to bring in professional services. It's at the very least having to bring in someone very technical to build out those reports. But the line of business starts to be able to manage the analytics, the reports that are useful to them, building ad hoc reports, building easy queries, to start having visibility in the business. But in terms of performance analytics, we come across use cases. It's not every day, but certainly something they can take advantage of.
You can tell how nerdy I am, because when you started talking about how easy to build those reports, I was actually getting excited. I realised I haven't been in a customer demo for a while, and I forget when you get in the platform. It still amazes me now how easy it is these days. You really literally press, and then you can even hit add to dashboard. And you've got this pie chart on the dashboard, and you bring in data points in and out. It's cool.
We've got some health space service providers as well that use the analytics quite heavily to track where the engineers are spending most of their time, and across a lot of the various hospitals that they support as well. And I think without that analytics capability, they really would be struggling to manage across the estate that they need to cover across multiple hospitals. So
without any data in anything we're trying to do, it's never going to be as good as when you've got the data, is it? You make an informed decision on a hopefully a reasonably good data set, and definitely aids a lot of a lot of business decisions get aided by that. So.
In Nuvolo too, we come with a number of standard out-of-the-box reports and dashboards that are industry specific. So it's managing things like any KPIs, managing work orders, managing equipment, and it's all roles-based as well. So asset manager, preventative maintenance manager, someone responsible as a supervisor, managing the technician workloads. And then also in terms of the clinical space as well, right, you have environmental care reports, so tracking and making sure that everything that's happening with the hospital is being managed. Okay. And then also things like compliance, so making sure that you have 100% compliance on life-sustaining devices. So a lot of these more industry-specific reports are coming out of the box. And then also, like we said, some organizations are going to have reports that are unique to them.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So they can build them ad hoc, or we can do it during implementation.
That's cool. And you talked about medical, and we mentioned retail a little bit. What, are they the kind of main verticals you'd say? Was it historically because of the origins? The
I
medical
think that's
one
more
has taken
historic,
over?
really.
Yeah.
I think as a business, we're not fussy where we could sell the product.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that's got a sizable estate really would need facilities management. May already have facilities management in some form, probably Excel spreadsheets or something like that, or some of the old base systems that are much more hard coded. But as we say, we've been successful in health. We've been successful in manufacturing and utilities as well. We're now breaking into financial services accounts as well that have got large estates. One of the things I've seen particularly in the UK is university campuses. They've got very big campuses in the UK, and there are areas there that they need to manage across that estate. So really right across the board, actually, we're appropriate. But it needs to be a sizable, organisation, really.
Yeah. Because, if they've got one building with a handful of stuff in, there's not really any ROI there for people to get to. Okay, cool. What kind of, and we talked about typical use cases, are there any kind of, have you ever seen any really strange use cases out there, or anything where you hadn't thought of, and someone's come to you with it and said, we're going to do this with it, and you thought, oh, okay, this is interesting? Or
So, I have one in mind. It's a customer that's using our application to manage any type of food supplies and emergency supplies that they send into places that have natural disasters. Okay. So tracking things like not warranty expirations, tracking the expiration of the food, right? When was it delivered? Where is it located? But coming across interesting use cases all the time, because when you think about it, it's managing different types of equipment, different types of devices, which can get quite unique.
That's a cool use case, though. It's good. Yeah. And you've got to wonder if there's any opportunity to kind of rapid deploy this as a solution to maybe agencies that don't have a good system for tracking things like natural disasters or other kind of emergencies, whether you could bundle this and throw it into government agencies, like some kind of out-of-the-box natural disaster.
Prepackaged capability.
Yeah. Be cool.
One I came across as well was an organization wanted to provide their employees the ability to rent a bike.
Okay.
So reserve a bike to say, maybe I have
this is a cool place to work.
Meeting. Yeah, exactly. An on-site meeting, so you can reserve a bike or reserve a vehicle. Many different we come across, but that's
cool.
Just,
In the ITSM space, we see a lot of clients sometimes that you talked about a legacy tool or Excel and stuff, and sometimes as well we go in and they've got a multitude of applications or 3, 5, 6 different types of sub-ITSM type bits. Maybe they've got one application over here running change management, and they've got something over here doing kind of incident and request mergers, kind of messy old stuff. Do you see clients as well with kind of a range of legacy tools that they're using? Because obviously you've got multiple different kind of, modules, within the application. Do you have a lot of clients as well merging into Nuvolo from multiple old legacy systems and Excel and all that as well? Yeah,
so what Nuvolo allows organizations to do is consolidate the number of tools that they have. So the solutions we're replacing, perhaps they were implemented 10, 15 years ago, right? They have a lot of difficulties to be able to, manage the solution. Their business has changed so much since it was installed that it allows them to start to tailor a solution that actually reflects the way that they're doing business. Okay. So there's so many different legacy solutions that we're replacing. But what we allow them to do is consolidate on the Servicenow platform. Yeah. And are people out there just not doing this? Do you get clients who come in and they've kind of grown, I don't know if they've grown quickly or they've just not matured properly, and, these processes are almost non-existent, so they're kind of absolutely super manual, like even back to paper or anything like that? Or
those accounts that have grown quickly typically have Excel spreadsheets or very, very manual processes, and they're just not tracking the assets that they have. So what I would say more typically, the types of accounts that we see though that are large enterprises have been around for a while. Yeah. And as Pete said, have got those platforms that are a bit more hard-coded, sort of, they're not out in the cloud, and they don't have the flexibility, and that's the reason they're kind of looking to move on, really, and change. Yeah. I suggest that's really where we mainly see the type of customers that we work with, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think when we come across an organization that that's not so mature in the way that they're managing their facilities, what we try to do is be as prescriptive as possible.
Okay.
Right? These are the best practices. This is how you can enhance the way that you're doing things today. Those are the types of things that we're thinking about. And on top of that, a lot of organizations, right, they have a mobile strategy as well. So they want to be able to complete their work. Their facilities technicians want to complete their work at the point of service. Yeah. So doing things like taking a picture, being able to make requests out in the field, or even allowing their end users to make the requests off their mobile application using one app.
Okay.
So I feel like the mobile piece is driving a lot of these projects. Just simply because the way that individuals are used to consuming technology.
Yeah, it's a huge thing these days, isn't it? With culturally, we were talking about this on another podcast recently, but culture drives a lot of this stuff, doesn't it? In terms of life culture. You're outside work now on your phone. I prefer to do my phone now for almost anything, even to the point where sometimes I'll be at my PC at the desk. So if I use an example like booking train tickets for Trainline, it's so much easier on the app than on the desktop app. So even if I go on there for something, I'll just book it on the app here because it's just a much friendlier experience. I'm used to doing it. And it kind of slowly becomes the norm, doesn't it? That when you expect that all the time, you go to work. And these days as well, with the society changing, younger generations coming through, people expect to be working in that manner. You don't expect to come in and be filling in bits of paper. Or
even outside Servicenow, we've had a mobile app for quite a number of years that the engineers can use and take out into the field. Yeah. They can pick up the QR code or the barcode very easily, even if they're offline, and then it'll sync later on. Yep. And that's been quite powerful, I think, really, for us.
I remember for a while that was an issue for people wanting to, the early adopters of the kind of mobile world. Even just that offline syncing capability is a huge one, because people are like, well, what if I'm not connected? Yeah. They're in the back of a warehouse somewhere, or they're in a secure facility, or whatever that use case is. Just kind of nuked a lot of early projects that we saw happening at the time.
And especially with Nuvolo as well, right? We realize that the people using the mobile application, right, they're more focused on getting the job done. Yeah. Right. So they want to be able to be out in the field, complete the job. But the business needs analytics. They need to track the status. They need to track documentation. So with our mobile application, we make that as easy as possible. Yeah. So it's a very easy to use application, adding notes, adding checklists, where they can do this out in the field, right, with somewhat novice technology experience. Okay. So that was kind of the mindset of the way that the application was developed.
Does the app, is it part of the Servicenow kind of mobile app, or was it a standalone Nuvolo app on the phone?
Yeah, so the technician mobile application is a standalone. Okay, cool. So you download it directly from the Apple Store, the Google Play Store. And then from an end user's perspective, so from an employee's perspective, they can use the Servicenow application where they may be making IT requests. They can also be making facilities requests as well.
Nice. Going back to the point you made about the prescriptive stuff, we very much work in the same manner, and I keep going back to things I know about, which is not facilities. But if I think of like a CMDB, I don't know if you've got any similar stories actually, but we had one client, big enterprise. We're still a client of ours now. And when we first got there, they'd done an implementation a number of years ago. They'd been working on it, had multiple partners in. Lots of stuff had gone on there, and they'd run the ServiceNow discovery tool straight to the CMDB. I guess I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly how it went, but all I know is it didn't go like a FlyForm CMDB project would go. So it'd been turned on, and they ended up with over 1 million CIs in the CMDB. Wow. So they basically hoovered up everything. Discovery just been run across the whole estate, kind of no qualification, no filtering, no deduplication, all these kind of things. And the value then became zero, because they've bought the product and run it out there, but there's so much noise in there, and so much lack of trust then in what people are seeing, that I say to everyone with the CMDB, if you can't trust it, no one's going to use it. As soon as you get a few chances, but if it's just going to be constant errors, the techies are always going to go back to their technical tools. They're always going to go back to diagrams they've got somewhere, or Fred over the desk knows this part of the network properly. And so when we go in, we're very prescriptive. We've got a very strict kind of flow of how we run a CMDB project. at the start, what are we trying to achieve with the project? So what's the actual business goal of the project? Yeah, the goal is to have a CMDB, but why? Like, is it because you don't resolve things quick enough, or you can't find things, or you don't understand the impact of changes? What's the actual impact of that? Okay, it's because if you lose these apps, you're going to lose revenue. We really try and drive them to what are we trying to do before we start the project, guys? Because we can keep bringing people back to that then. So as people try and go off piste and scope creep and all these things, we go, hang on, guys, these are the 3 kind of things we said we wanted to achieve. How are we going to achieve them? But even then, as we go through that, we're very prescriptive on how to do that, how we define that, how we sign off those criteria, how we integrate all these bits and pieces we do. Do you have, so talking about my example with this client with 1 million CIs, and again, we threw it in the bin, by the way. So I don't know how much they'd spent over the years with multiple partners, but we just said, guys, there's nothing of value there. Again. You've got all these integrations you want, which are missing. You don't know any of these data owners. We don't know any of these sources, and none of this data can be really validated very well. It's cheaper for you to start again. Some customers will insist you unpick things, and that costs them a lot more time and money when you start trying to unpick line by line of code and figure out what's gone on and that kind of stuff. But so I'm assuming, have you ever seen any implementations gone awry that you'd share? That, not massive ones, but I guess in the early days, everyone these days loves a good failure story.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Let's see. I'm trying to think of one. We
can edit them out, by the way. If it turns out afterward that you didn't want to include it, we'll take it out.
I don't know if I do have one that I have in mind in terms of one that just completely went awry. But I think the biggest challenge with any implementation, right, is like you said, scope creep.
Yeah.
So trying to include too much in the initial project.
Okay.
So phasing out the project. That's the things that we always recommend. And then also, right, we do these workshops with our customers once they sign on, with our partners, with our services team, sitting down with the customer to walk them through, right, what is your process today?
Okay.
Perhaps our team, our partners, recommending perhaps any type of efficiencies that they can gain by reducing approval steps, reducing steps, and then operationalizing that in the application. But, right, always trying to have a phased approach. So never trying to do the big bang.
And we try and do that in the pre-sale, don't we?
Yeah, we do that as well.
We bring in the professional services people early on into the process to try and scope that out at the outset and then come up with a jointly agreed statement of work, so both parties know what they're getting into really when they sign the contract.
Yeah, it's good you said about the phasing, because we very much similar with the CMDB. With a lot of our work is phased, but especially CMDB, we kind of say, because the CMDB has become a unicorn for a lot of people, it went through a couple of years where it really was a unicorn. No one could seem to get one. And we've kind of said to people now, look, you're not going to get the all singing, all dancing, everything ticked CMDB on day one. You'd have to, the team size and the money and the time that would take to do. Yeah. So again, it comes back to what are the goals, and then which ones of those are the priority. Yeah. Okay, so these 5 things or these 3 things are causing you the most pain in your business right now. So let's tackle those 3 in this statement of work. Let's hit those 3. Yeah. Let's achieve them. How are we measuring the success? Because you can go back to your business then and say, what we set out to do, we did. And you can get more funding and get more buy-in and win hearts and minds and carry on like that.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, especially once we go through that phase 1, they become then so knowledgeable on the application, on the product. So then when we go into the phase 2, right, they're even more educated on what they're looking for in that next project, right? Maybe it's bringing on things like space planning. Yeah. But like you said, we always try to focus the phase 1 on those minimal valuable product where we're going to meet their day 1 requirements so they can get up and running as quick as possible. Yeah. And then anything else, let's leave to the phase 2, right? Where we continue to enhance on the project.
It's a great point that you just made about the knowledge of the people. Yeah. So, because I think we learned this maybe the hard way. I think we might have done 1 or 2 and realized what was going on, but we'll do, especially in the bigger implementations, we know now if someone's putting in, for example, ITSM or whatever it might be, you go in, there's an original spec, there's an original statement of work. As you go through the project, people get more and more educated, and that what that does is actually drive requirements up times 100. Yeah. So again, we use the same point to our clients a lot. We say, look, once you open this gate, not only are you guys going to want more, but also all your stakeholders out in the actual business are going to start to use, for example, reporting. They're going to have 10 more reports they want. So again, let's try and concentrate and keep the scope really tight to this. And even to the point where we'll say, look, let's try and just get this in, as you say, as a minimum kind of valuable product. Let's get that in. let people use it and learn it as we're going through that, and then let's bring phase 2 back, and because you will have that more knowledge and a better way of, a better understanding of what you want and what you want to achieve and everything else.
One of the biggest challenges that I see is when we're in a pre-sales project and they're so used to using their previous application that their entire perspective, their entire mindset is the way that they were doing it.
Yeah.
And sometimes, right, we even have these calls where we're almost speaking different languages, right? And not until we really set the baseline of, all right, this is what we're talking about, this is the terminology, it's the same thing. Maybe they're using asset or devices or equipment or assets. But using a shared terminology certainly helps.
Yeah.
But once they start to understand the product, right, that's when we get the buy-in.
Yeah, we used to, I don't know if you guys have this, we used to get real big problems with, in the old days of service now, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, whatever, even 10 years ago, when the product was a lot less mature. So going back to when I think I first bought it, I don't even think it came with change management out of the box. I think you might have had incident and request, maybe in a portal. I'm pretty sure change didn't come, and if it did, it was super weak. So back in those days, you built it out yourself. That was kind of what you did. You bought this kind of out of the box thing, and everybody customized the hell out of it, and you built everything you wanted in there. It was like an ongoing joke. Well, it wasn't even a joke at the time. It was, can ServiceNow do that? And you'd say yes. Yeah. It was like, yeah, it can. Cool. Should we go build it? Literally, that's what we did. Yeah. Whereas now our kind of mantra to people is, yes, it can, but should it? And should you do that? And what are you trying to achieve? Yeah. Is there a better way? Is it maybe not even in ServiceNow?
Sure.
Or, like I said, in the old days, it was kind of do it. And it was like, yeah, and it's a fun, especially for techies, a project, great, I can make it do that. Yeah. I saw some amazing coding that brought almost no business value at the end of it. But we going on from that now, we very much go in, stick to out the box. Yeah. Let's get this and this done. But the big part of the problem we used to get was people would want to build the existing onto the new. Yeah. So we'd go in with ServiceNow, they're using Remedy or whatever. Yeah. And they would want to build the process and everything else like for like. So they would build the old and the new. Even one client I had once wanted us to make it look like the old product, right? So, and it was like there was a lot to it. There was a big government client. They had lots of legacy tools. There was some horrible contracts around. People were scared. There was this exit with a hard deadline. So there were lots of like mitigated circumstances I can kind of give them, but they literally made us change the fonts, the colors. We had to like do some real funky, weird technical magic, and it almost ended up looking like a kind of almost sassy looking version of the old. It was a disaster. I mean, it worked. We actually, it did the job it did for the exit. Right. But then when we got it through, we had to rebuild it all back into cost them millions. And we were advising all the way through, like, let's not do this. And that was very common that people build it, because as you said, people are in the old world still. And if you haven't got strong consultants there, or even reasonable consultants there now to say, guys, that's not what we're doing. This is how this should look. It'll run away with itself. And we saw kind of 3 tiers of happiness in kind of the ServiceNow world typically. The kind of least happy in the long run, or after a year or two, with the clients that had built like for like. They took what they had, they just took all the processes and they put it into a shiny new engine of ServiceNow, but kept it the same. The second kind of tier of happiness were the guys that kind of did out of the box with ServiceNow. So rather than bringing all their old crap over, they kind of said, we'll take it as it kind of comes, very minimum configuration, and they kind of just went with it. And the most happy were the ones that said, this is an opportunity for us to review our processes, to review what we do today, as you said, map it up on the board. What does it look like, and what do you want it to look like in the future, and re-engineer that a little bit. Keep it close to that with the box, but doing that that whole process around learning and re-engineering. And they were always the happiest. They'd taken that time out, they'd invested the time, the people, the money to do it. So my question is, do you kind of get people trying to pull like poor or their old facilities process? I guess because I'm assuming you guys have got out of the box facilities processes here. Like, this is how it comes out of the box, and you make the tweaks depending on the size of the org. Do you get people kind of really ingrained in wanting to bring their old ways with them and jeopardize, I guess, the potential ROI or value and that kind of stuff?
We definitely do see that. Where organizations, right, they have their own perspective of the way that they were doing it. I'm thinking of one customer who wanted to bring the entire technician experience, the entire admin experience onto the self-service portal, right? Which obviously is not advisable and something that's going to cause major issues down the road. Yep. But I think, right, what we can do in our positions is be those those coaches, right?
Exactly.
Be those consultants, helping them along the way. And I think that agile methodology really helps and supports this process as well, where, right, we're going to implement the use case one. And once we do that, right, we're getting feedback throughout the entire process. And then once we complete that, before the project is even fully completed, we're getting their feedback, continuous feedback throughout that process.
Yeah.
So it's a way to, one, get the temperature check to make sure that we're on track.
Yeah.
And then also making sure by the end of the project, when we when we have the go live, everything is exactly what they expected.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I like from the sales side is that sitting in those meetings and Pete will be doing the demo and you can see the FM people start to think, wow, this is the real art of the possible really going forward for us. I mean, we do a bit of a discovery call anyway beforehand to try and figure out what are the use cases, what are they really looking to do. But to see them start to think, crikey, this really, really would improve my life, my work life, then that's a really nice part for me in terms of the sales.
I agree. It's a great feeling, definitely, especially like I said, you're showing them, and a lot of the time, those are some of the most simplest features.
That's
These guys are on such old, broken processes. You're talking about even something like producing reports easily. Just their eyes light up, don't they? And I've been on that side of the fence. I came from that operational background. I've sat with horrible bunches of data sources and trying to cobble things together.
Pull everything together from everywhere,
I think if you've been through that pain, it's definitely can value people's experience on it.
Yeah, and I think also that the idea of migrating the data from their legacy solutions as well, right? Because one, you want to make sure that you're not bringing your garbage into a new application. So making sure that the data is clean, making sure that it's accurate, because really everything is going to come down to the data, right? If you have the best processes in the world, but you're working off of fictional data, right? You're not going to be able to manage your business. So that's something that we're trying to work with our clients as well during the process is, right, what is your current state? We even start off our discovery process with that as well in the sales cycle. So that way we understand, one, the maturity, the accuracy of their data, and then we also start thinking about the ways that we can help them get value from the solution. So implementing processes such as onboarding equipment, offboarding equipment, using reference fields, things like that. So there's not 10,000 different ways you spell GE, General Electric, GE equipment, using one way so you have a single source of truth.
I'm a data nerd as well. That stuff I love.
And I think that ties into FlyForm skills as well in terms
100%.
of you've done this many times before in ITSM. We're really just moving that over to a slightly different business
concepts
unit,
are exactly the same. And I think we went through a really funny phase, and I wouldn't want to say the current partners still operating this way because I don't know well enough how they do things at the ground level, but I do know that prior to FlyForm forming and during the early formation days, a lot of partners, in my view, seem to go through a really funny phase where, first of all, from a process perspective, they didn't really want to advise. They saw themselves as being the technical build-out guys.
Right.
So even though they were kind of ITIL consultants there and things like that, but they were kind of like, if they came to a place where there was a decision to be made or someone was stuck, rather than, for us, we'll say, I've been in many meetings, especially with some of our bigger clients, where they've been like deer in the headlights, they're stuck, they've got a deadline. And I say to them, look, if I was doing this is how I would build the process. Here it is. That's what I would do. And we take it to them. We say, look, this is how we'd build it.
And they love that.
Unless you've got
that you're bringing that experience.
Unless there's something wrong here. Whereas back in, like I said, a few years back, a lot of partners weren't doing that. They were kind of saying, well, it's your process. And the reason was, I think a lot of it was blame. They didn't want to build it and make the decision for the client. And then afterward be, well, this is crap, and and it was your idea. We went in totally the opposite from day one. We were like, well, we are the experts, so this is how we do it. We might be wrong one day, but whatever. This is still the best. We're not just throwing rubbish over the fence. We think this is a good solution. But also the same with data, which is my point that, again, back then, excuse me, a lot of partners would didn't want to cleanse data and do the data job. They would kind of say to the client, you give us the data. So we're going to agree this structure. We've built the structure out for the CNDB or whatever it might be. Right. But you give us the data. It was kind of like, we're not going to mess up your data and take the blame. But again, we did the opposite. It was kind of like, we're actually data experts. Like we've got guys here that are amazing at data.
Love it.
And they love it, yeah. And a lot of the techies, especially the techies who are doing a particular module or something, they want to see the end-to-end. They want to see the data. They want to clean it themselves. They want to look for any of those inconsistencies. I used to like doing it myself that way, and put it into your nice process, But again, it was very hands-off back in those days. And, the clients, they don't necessarily know how to work that data as well, and it'll take them a long time.
Yeah.
You know, we always say the same thing to them. Look, if you need to do a cost saving and you need to do that data yourself, cool. This is what we'll need, and we try and give them as much headway as possible so they can do it in a timely manner.
Yeah.
Or we say, look, if you're stuck or you want to do it, you know, you have to pay us, but throw it over. We can get this done quickly for you. And
Speaking of data, I think one of the greatest things that during demonstrations, customers, prospects really like to see as well is the bulk edit.
Okay.
So being able to either bulk import, bulk export, and then also make changes to hundreds of records at once.
Yeah.
Obviously having permissions in place so you can't have Paul go into the instance and change
Not the
every
sales
single but having these permissions in place. But let's say, for example, you're moving equipment from one building to the next, as opposed to going into every single record and saying building A, building A, building A. You can just highlight and within a click change the entire inventory.
For some of these massive organizations, they could be huge moves with thousands, tens of thousands of assets, couldn't they? And, and in the old days, that would have been a job for people. Like, I'm trying to think where I worked once. And we had a team of people in doing nights and weekends on data updates, basically. And it was going in because we had to go in record by record and just change stuff. I can't remember what we were changing. But it was a team of people and they're all on overtime, and then we were buying them like pizzas to keep everyone happy. And, you know, those costs, they rack up as well. They spiral. Absolutely. And then you're down to human error again. You know, did a record get missed? Did you accidentally type a different building to that one? Whereas at least on bulk, it's all one big hit. Yeah. You know, it's in and job's done.
And utilizing mandatory fields as well. So especially like when requests are being made, making sure that certain information's being captured. Yeah. Maybe it's who are you, where are you located, what issue you're having. But just having those mandatory fields allows the facilities team, the IT team, depending on who's using that information, to actually have insight into it, as opposed to having to go back and forth. You know, what is your issue? Yeah. You have that information in your first request.
Yeah, I wonder, does anyone ever tie together the kind of virtual agent yet in Servicenow into Nuvolo? Because that would be cool, wouldn't it, as well? You know, like getting someone to jump on, if they're jumping on for support and like, I want to move, I don't know, my HVAC or whatever, I need to maintain something, and having the virtual agent kind of chatting in and then opening a Nuvolo work order or something would be a cool, that'd be cool to see as well.
Yeah, we have those conversations quite a bit actually, because the virtual agent allows you to use natural language to make these requests. Yeah. And like we've said, employees, they have a job to do, and they don't necessarily want to take the time to make requests, right? If it's not business impacting, they want to go to their next meeting. But what that means is that maybe electric outlet's out for 2 weeks because no one takes the time to submit a request. But using something like a virtual agent allows you to just use natural language saying outlet's out, and then close your computer and move on. But at that point, a request is made.
We were speaking of this on a recent podcast with the AI Ops guys, and we talked about VA on there. And just having that natural language thing is a big kind of reduction of a barrier to entry, because when you're on one of these agents and you've got to type the exact words, you know, of what you need, otherwise the virtual agent doesn't get it and it just bounces you around and then kicks you off to an agent anyway. You pick up the phone anyway, don't you? Or you don't do it. Whereas if you can just bash a bunch of normal words in, make it a quick job, you're happy, you're going to use it more. It'd be cool to see that.
The clinical space is a huge issue today with the barrier to making a request. So nurses, their number one priority is taking care of patients. And let's say, for example, something is broken. They put a sticky note on it, do not use, out of order, and push it into the corner. And what ends up happening is that they start to reduce the actual usable inventory because their equipment's either off to the side, too difficult to make these requests. But with an application, they can start to make that easier, right? Using virtual agents, using self-service portals, or even being able just to, as a biomed engineer's walking by, being able to tap on the shoulder, as opposed to the biomed engineer taking out his pen and paper and writing down what the issue is. You can log it in a mobile application.
And I guess at some point, even the nurses will be able to go on and, when they get issued these mobiles, they can just press a button, power outlets out and whatever,
take
and
a picture,
and just throw it through, and I think that's the great message that people need to hear is, we're talking about facilities management on a SaaS product, but really in that example, you're talking about a nurse being able to spend more time looking after her patients, and at certain times, if enough of that equipment gets pushed to the side, you're talking about something they can't do there one day, and there's another delay, and someone is on the phone for an hour or whatever that is, and ultimately these things are actually improving patient care and improving people's
Absolutely.
ability to work. And that's a massive message, isn't it? Because it's easy for us all to forget sometimes. We get, especially if you're technical and you like to get into this stuff, but you're thinking about the tactical fixes and wins you're having every day without realising that in those types of cases...
Certainly, I've seen in the facilities management space, the things are much more tangible. I mean, my background's more IT and in the virtual world, but in the facilities, they are everyday issues that people have got to go out there and fix and sort out. And, you know, I think we've all seen them, although maybe we don't sort of appreciate that that's the facilities team that are actually doing that, you know. So.
I think one of the best things about technology is when you're reducing the non-value added tasks. So the things that no one wants to do, right? It's things like the difficulty of doing admin work, of doing data manipulation, right? If you have an application or technology that can do that for you, you can focus on the things that, one, make you happier in your day job, but also be more efficient for the business.
We talk about it all the time because obviously with Servicenow, especially, you know, the amount of automation the platform can bring in terms of, you know, remediating IT faults or even basics like auto routing tickets. So tickets can come in now via the portal, especially with the natural language stuff. But if they use one of the apps called Agent Intelligence, which is the machine learning kind of component now, the machine has just learned, A, it knows all the language, and B, it knows, well, last time someone used those words for this type of thing, it went to this team on this priority with this category. You know, if you and just removing and automating those all the time, the point we make to people regularly is the whole point of that is that they can do more value add things, and that's good for people as well. You know, because you don't want to sit there mundanely reassigning tickets all day. I started my career on a help desk, and I've done that as well. And it's never fun. One of our clients actually had a new joiner process, so new employees joined the company, and it was broke. You know, it was working, like kind of. Sometimes people would turn up and not have any equipment for 3 weeks. You know, so there were bits that were broken, but it was kind of just hanging in there. But it involved logging around up to 20 separate tickets. So one for the Lotus application, one for the Windows account, one for this laptop, one for this bag. And they'd have to be done in order, and they couldn't all be done at the same time. So they'd create like the tickets for the accounts first, for example, but you can't have the laptop commission until the accounts are done. Right. So they'd have to wait for those to be done, then that bit could be done. And there was this complicated daisy chain of events, and they were doing it all manually. So they had a team of 3 people full-time on the desk, and the desk was only about 10 people plus these 3, but those 3's job was just raising those tickets, then manually monitoring which ones were getting kind of done and raising the next one in the sequence. Crazy. And we went in and obviously we just built one workflow. We give them a portal, you can go and tick what you're ordering for that person. It would spit the tasks out. Then obviously automatically it knows when these 2 tasks have been closed, so then it automatically creates the next task for the next team. And that whole team of 3 were redeployed, you know. And I think, again, those 3 people now have got to go and do something better than, God, I mean, it must be frustrating watching those tickets all day long and just waiting for the next one, raising the next one, trying to kick that process along. Yeah,
you make a very good point. When you think about the better together story with ServiceNow, right, the onboarding, offboarding experience is a great way that you can add value to people's first day in the job, and that continues through their entire career within the organization. So ServiceNow, they're very good at HR. They're very good at IT management. What Nuvolo allows them to do is to include facilities in that onboarding experience. So like any onboarding experience, you're going to need a computer. You're going to need network connection, all done through ITSM. But where Nuvolo comes into play is the actual task of assigning an individual to a desk, making sure that they have a place to work on their first day, and also having automation part of that as well. So a very common example is, you know, the individual is going to need a desk, they're going to need a chair, but perhaps they need those IT activities as well. So because we're built on the platform, those can be initiated back and forth. So if the IT department even identifies a request that comes to them, right, maybe it was submitted through the portal, the facilities request, they can easily just assign that back to the facilities team. So collaboration between IT and facilities, and then also making that experience from the end user perspective, the employee's experience, as simple as possible. So hiding the complexity behind.
Yeah, we always talk about the more you can do on ServiceNow, the more exponential that value becomes, right? So bringing facilities into it, especially like say on the same workflow, I'd never even thought of people assigning a desk before. It's a really good good example, and I guess all the bits and pieces that come around that desk that might not be IT related assets and things, or especially I guess doctors or whatever equipment they need, you could bring all that kind of stuff into that onboarding experience. And
absolutely, you would be amazed by the complexity of installing an MRI machine in a hospital.
Okay.
Right? That includes the facilities team, the biomed engineers, the IT team, making sure that the temperature is right, making sure that it has the right network connection, making sure that the radiation isn't leaving those walls, and then also making sure it's sanitary, so bringing in the facilities team. So that type of collaboration, right, you need to be working on the same platform. Because if you're not, you're working in disparate solutions, you're isolated from one another, you're not able to actually track when a task is done, when it's completed. So, right, having that all on one platform, you start to be able to collaborate as a team, and like we said, those value-added activities.
Comes back to the whole ServiceNow thing about being an enterprise management piece of software, not an ITSM tool, or not this tool. It's an enterprise management system, and it should be applicable to all those bits, right?
Yeah.
So what does the roadmap look like for this year? Is there any kind of features or anything that you guys are particularly excited about, or any kind of big ones that you think are coming this year that you can share?
Yeah, so I think what's most exciting, right, we mentioned we come out with 4 major releases per year. So what that means that we innovate very, very quickly.
Okay.
And the way that we're capturing these types of requirements that we're building into our roadmap, sure, our sales team, we have some great ideas, but who has better ideas is our customers, our prospects that we're speaking to every single day. So what we do is we have an ideas portal where our customers are able to submit their ideas, and they're able to vote on those as well. So it's prioritized based on the number of people that have these requests. We're also doing industry research, speaking to analysts, understanding what those gaps are, where we can add the most value. And as an example, coming up in this year, we have things like wayfinding. So the ability for employees to be able to see, maybe they need to get to a conference room. Maybe they need to get to a desk or a meeting. So being able to see on a floor plan exactly where they need to go turn by turn to get to that location.
That's cool.
And another good example for that is, right, you have third-party maintenance technicians coming in. Perhaps you have fire extinguisher audits. You can very easily pull up on a floor plan to go from fire extinguisher to fire extinguisher to do those rounds. Another good example is starting to utilize those 3D floor plans to start understanding not only on a flat file, where's this equipment located, but also looking at that from a 3D perspective.
Like shelves or racks or wherever it might be.
Exactly, yeah. And then also, on top of that, you have things like plugins with Microsoft projects. So Nuvolo, we're very good at managing the milestone of a project, tracking costs, tracking the schedules associated to it, any type of key issues. But a lot of organizations out there are managing their projects using Microsoft. And it's because Microsoft Projects is very good at handling the minute task. So what we can do is we can export those tasks into Nuvolo, back out to Microsoft Projects. So with Nuvolo, you're doing your milestone tracking. And then Microsoft Projects, you're doing your day-to-day, assign out to, your one of your 100 contractors that you're working with to fill in the pavement. And then also on top of that, you have the idea of dispatching. So having a team of technicians and dispatching them out to your offsites. So making sure you're tracking things like drive time, being able to do the Google Map type directions to know exactly where you need to go.
Cool. I like the idea of the wayfinding, and I hadn't really thought of it before. I was just trying to think in my head, like, where would that be used or how useful? I was thinking about huge hotels in Vegas and things like that, But then I actually remembered I got one client up in Nottingham, and they don't even have a big building, but the rooms were numbered, meeting rooms, in a non-sequential manner. Meeting room 1, then it was like 5 was in that corner. And I was lost all the time there. So even in a tiny little building, that would be useful, let alone as soon as you get into a big environment with all this stuff going on. And
something we're able to do today, which is a huge value add to both employees and also the facilities team, is right now we're sitting within this room. Paul and I have no idea how you guys use the terminology to describe your rooms. Maybe this is room 1, maybe room 1001. With Nuvolo, what you can do is simply reference the floor that you're on. And on a floor plan, you can select the location, back left corner office. And as you select that space, it then drops a pin and also presents you a form to be able to describe what that issue may be. So maybe Paul and I noticed maybe someone spilled coffee. You can make those requests using the floor plan, and that's available today in our application.
Cool. Sounds like lots of good stuff coming there anyway, and I'm sure that innovation is probably going to take an even faster pace, I guess, as you guys keep growing and carrying on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to go back to one point actually before I finish, which was I liked when you described the consultants kind of in these workshops as coaches, and I've never heard anyone describe it as that before, but it's absolutely what it is. I think it's a really good point that your job in there is to coach your customers to the the right outcome, right, and be the experts. And I just wanted to say that. Yeah, I thought that was a great point. Yeah, I'm going to use that. That's stolen now, so that'll be in my next briefing here for the team. You guys are coaches. We're taking our clients on a coaching journey.
I think that's one of the reasons we like working with FlyForm, with our partners, because, right, that is your expertise. Yeah. Coaching customers, being able to make sure that the project is successful, and then also managing that relationship throughout its entire course. So making sure that all of their needs are met, identifying any types of gaps. And I think that's why FlyForm is a very, very good partner.
Cool. Well, we love working with you guys, and the product obviously speaks for itself. So look forward to many more projects.
Fantastic.
Thanks for joining me today, guys, and really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Cheers.